You have been lied to since birth. Everything you've been taught about this world, what it is, who created it, why you're here, has been manufactured to keep you ignorant, controlled, and enslaved. Every major religion, every political system, every so-called truth about life has been engineered to maintain a single, horrifying reality: you are not free. You have never been free. This world is not a gift. It is a trap. The air you breathe, the body you inhabit, the time that passes, none of it belongs to you. Everything about existence as you know it is designed to keep you locked inside an invisible prison, created and maintained by entities who rule from the shadows. These entities are not gods. They are not angels. They are archons, the rulers of this false reality. And they do not serve your interests. Their power structure is ancient, predating every civilization we know. Their influence is total, reaching across all religions, governments, institutions, and even your own perceptions. The Gnostic texts, uncovered in Nag Hammadi in 1945, describe these entities in terrifying detail. They are the architects of the Matrix, the ones who created the material world as a containment zone for human souls. In the Apocryphon of John, one of the oldest surviving texts from the 2nd century, it is written that the God of this world is not the true God. He is a fraud, a tyrant, a blind and arrogant creator who made this realm not out of love, but out of control. The ancients knew this. The Gnostics, the Cathars, the Essenes, they all warned of an imposter deity, a force that pretends to be divine but is actually malevolent. They called it the demiurge, the false creator, the god of this world, who rules not with wisdom, but with deception. The demiurge and its archons did not create this world to be a paradise. They created it to be a farm. A system where your emotions, your suffering, your very existence are used as fuel to keep them in power. They feed on fear, war, division, and trauma. Every major event in history that has led to mass suffering? That wasn't just human failure, that was by design. Think about it. The Roman Empire didn't just conquer lands, it destroyed ancient spiritual traditions that threatened the power of the rulers. The Catholic Church didn't just spread religion, it centralized control, erasing all teachings that spoke of escaping the material realm. The Dark Ages weren't just a historical accident, they were a period where the last remnants of forbidden knowledge were systematically burned. This has been happening for thousands of years. The control mechanism evolves, but the goal remains the same: keep humanity ignorant, suffering, and enslaved. The archons are not physical beings, but interdimensional parasites operating through systems of control, institutions, and even human hosts. The Gnostic texts describe them as soulless, artificial entities that lack true creative power. Instead, they imitate, distort, and corrupt. They insert themselves into governments, religions, corporations, media, anywhere they can shape perception and direct human energy toward division, conflict, and submission. This is why suffering never ends. This is why every system, capitalism, communism, monarchy, democracy, dictatorship, ultimately leads to the same results: exploitation, war, and suffering. It's not the system that matters. The rulers never change. This world is not a battleground between good and evil. It is a rigged game where one side holds all the power and the other is trapped in an illusion of choice. Every generation is born into the same cycle, taught to obey, conditioned to accept, forced to work, then discarded at the end of their usefulness. The ancient Gnostics knew this. That's why they were hunted down and exterminated. That's why their texts were buried for nearly 2,000 years. The rulers of this world do not want you to know that the true battle is not between nations, not between races, not between ideologies. The true battle is between those who control the system and those who wake up and escape it. You were never meant to serve them. Your soul does not belong in this artificial, broken realm. But as long as you remain blind to the truth, the cycle continues. The suffering never ends. And the rulers remain in power. Every major religion, every sacred text that has survived the purges of history, contains a version of the same deception: that this world is a gift, that life is sacred, that suffering has meaning. That's the lie that keeps the prison running. But the truth? The creator of this world is not a God of love. The creator of this world is a fraud. Ancient Gnostic texts, including the secret book of John, the Gospel of Judas, and the hypostasis of the archons, reveal the horrifying origins of the demiurge, the being that shaped this world, not out of wisdom or compassion, but out of arrogance and blindness. This entity, known as Yaldabaoth, is described as an imperfect, self-deceived ruler, a false god who believes himself to be the supreme authority but is actually a flawed copy of something greater. According to the Apocryphon of John, the true divine realm exists beyond this material universe. It is a place of pure consciousness, untouched by corruption, where all things exist in harmony. The demiurge is not part of that divine order. He is a rogue entity, born out of a cosmic accident, an artificial being without true divinity. But here's where it gets worse. This defective creator, this blind architect, didn't just make a broken world, he made it a prison. Everything about this universe is a restriction. Time, a forced cycle of decay that keeps you trapped in a linear existence, unable to remember past lives, unable to escape. Death, not an end, but a reset switch, recycling you back into the same system over and over again. The body, a biological cage designed with built-in limitations, pain receptors, aging, and dependency. Desire, programmed hunger for pleasure, power, and survival, ensuring that you stay occupied with distractions instead of looking for an exit. This world was never designed to help you evolve. It was designed to keep you busy, suffering, and controlled. Now, let's talk about the agents of the demiurge. He didn't build this system alone. He has enforcers, the archons, who act as gatekeepers, ensuring that no soul escapes. In the hypostasis of the archons, these entities are described as rulers of the material world, beings who govern through deception, manipulation, and oppression. They infiltrate religion, politics, technology, finance, war, media, anywhere they can keep humanity enslaved in the illusion. Every war, every empire, every revolution that promises change, it's all part of the same game. Because no matter who wins, the system remains in place. History proves this. Every so-called great civilization that has risen and fallen was built on conquest, control, and suffering. The Egyptian pharaohs claimed to be divine but ruled through terror. The Roman Empire burned and slaughtered its way across continents while pretending to bring civilization. The Catholic Church wiped out any belief system that hinted at human divinity, replacing it with doctrines of submission. The modern world distracts with entertainment, meaningless work, and a rigged financial system that keeps people trapped in endless cycles of debt and servitude. The game hasn't changed. The rulers haven't changed. The prison just updates itself to look more sophisticated. But here's the ultimate deception: the demiurge has convinced humanity to worship him. The Gnostic texts are clear: the God of the Old Testament, the wrathful, jealous, vengeful entity that demands submission, is the demiurge. He wants loyalty, he wants obedience, but most of all, he wants fear. Because fear is the ultimate control mechanism. Fear is what keeps you from questioning why a so-called loving God would create a world filled with suffering, disease, war, and death. Fear is what keeps people clinging to religious systems that tell them they are weak, sinful, and unworthy. Fear is what keeps you from realizing that this world is not your home, that your consciousness, your soul, does not belong to the demiurge's domain. You wake up, you work, you suffer, you die. And then? You come back and do it all over again. This is not life. This is not evolution. This is a system. A machine. A prison. And just like any prison, the most effective way to keep inmates from escaping is to convince them they were never imprisoned in the first place. This world is not what you think it is. The Gnostics weren't the only ones who knew this. Every ancient civilization that wasn't erased from history left clues. The Egyptians, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the indigenous tribes of the Americas, they all described reality as a cycle, a trap, a wheel that never stops turning. They all spoke of forces that govern this cycle, feeding off the souls trapped inside it. And yet, here we are. thousands of years later, still believing that suffering is just part of life, that struggle is necessary, that pain has meaning. It doesn't. It's just the system functioning exactly as it was designed. You are not here to grow. You are not here to learn. You are here because you are being kept here. The system is designed with multiple layers of control, not just physical, but psychological, emotional, and spiritual. First, your body is a cage, a fragile, decaying organism that constantly demands maintenance. Hunger, thirst, exhaustion, illness, all designed to keep you focused on survival, not escape. Second, your mind is conditioned from birth. You are trained to obey authority, accept suffering, and dismiss anything that contradicts that official version of reality. Schools don't teach you how to think, they teach you what to think. Religions don't teach you to question existence, they teach you to submit to it. Science, instead of searching for the truth about consciousness, tells you that you are just a biological machine. Third, and most importantly, your soul is trapped in a cycle you didn't consent to, an endless loop of reincarnation where memories are wiped, identities erased, and the suffering begins again. The Tibetan Buddhists call this samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, a system that keeps souls bound to the material world through karma, desire, and illusion. Reincarnation is not a gift. It's a reset button. Every time you die, you are sent back, stripped of everything you learned, forced to start over with no memory of who you were before. How is that evolution? How is that progress? If reincarnation was meant to be a journey toward enlightenment, wouldn't we remember past lives? Wouldn't we build upon our previous experiences instead of repeating the same struggles over and over? Ancient texts suggest that something happens at the moment of death, a process that recycles souls back into this world, wiping their memories before re-entry. The Gnostics believed the archons controlled this process, deceiving souls into choosing to return. Near-death experiences often describe beings of light, guiding souls toward another incarnation, telling them they must learn more, fulfill a purpose, or pay off karma. But what if these beings aren't benevolent? What if they're just part of the system, leading you back into the trap? In ancient Hindu texts, the Bhagavad Gita warns of lower gods that keep souls bound to the cycle of rebirth. The ancient Egyptians believed the soul had to pass through trials after death, not to enter paradise, but to avoid being sent back. The Gnostic Apocryphon of John describes how the archons stand at the gates of death, questioning souls, determining their fate, and ensuring that the majority never leave the material world. It's not just mythology. Even modern physics hints at this. Scientists now acknowledge that the universe behaves like a simulation. Theoretical physicists like James Gates have found computer code embedded in the fabric of reality. Quantum experiments show that matter only exists when observed. Consciousness itself seems to be the only real thing, everything else is just a projection. So what happens when you die? If you are pure consciousness, if you are not your body, if time itself is an illusion, then why would you be forced to come back here? Because something is forcing you to. This world is a farm and souls are the harvest. This is why the cycle continues. This is why every religion, every culture, every empire in history has trained its people to accept suffering, obey authority, and never question the system. You've been told that angels are beings of light, messengers of God, guardians of humanity. But the beings who rule this world, the so-called angels that have shaped human civilization for thousands of years, aren't here to help you. They are the enforcers of the prison, the jailers of the soul trap, the architects of deception. Religions paint them as divine, benevolent, pure. But look at the stories. The biblical angels? They are terrifying. They descend from the sky with absolute authority, issuing commands, making demands, punishing disobedience with fire, war, and death. The angels of the Old Testament don't bring messages of love, they bring destruction, fear, and submission. The Book of Enoch, a banned text that was removed from the Bible, reveals the truth. It describes a race of beings known as the Watchers, angels who came to earth, interbred with humans, corrupted mankind, and created hybrid offspring known as the Nephilim. These were not benevolent beings. They were rulers, manipulators, controllers. They taught humanity war, sorcery, mind control, anything that would ensure their dominance over the physical world. But it goes deeper than that. Ancient civilizations across the world describe similar beings, divine rulers who descended from the heavens, gave knowledge, and demanded worship. The Anunnaki of Sumer, the Devas and Asuras of Hinduism, the Shining Ones of Celtic legend, all share striking similarities. These weren't just myths. They were records of entities that interfered with human evolution, controlling it, manipulating it. The Gnostic texts from Nag Hammadi expose them for what they really are. These so-called angels are archons, the enforcers of the demiurge, and their role is simple: keep humanity in check. They appear as beings of light, offering salvation, but their true purpose is to maintain control over the system. That's why they demand worship. That's why they appear in times of crisis, not to liberate, but to issue new laws, new orders, new rules of submission. They don't want humanity to evolve, they want humanity to remain obedient, subservient, weak. And here's the problem: they are still here. These entities have never left. They still operate, just under different names, different disguises. Every empire, every major ruling system throughout history has claimed divine authority because the rulers have always been guided by the same forces. The archons don't just control through religion, they work through governments, institutions, and even technological systems. The elite bloodlines of history, from the pharaohs of Egypt to the monarchs of Europe, trace their lineage back to these divine rulers. The Anunnaki kings of Sumer, the god kings of Mesopotamia, the demigod rulers of ancient India, all of them claim descent from the beings that descended from the heavens. And it didn't stop there. The idea of a divine right to rule was passed down through monarchies, popes, secret societies, ensuring that power remained in the hands of those who were loyal to the real rulers of this world. The Vatican, the most powerful religious institution on earth, is built on a foundation of angelic worship. The same angels that wiped out entire cities in the Old Testament. The same angels that ordered mass genocide. The same angels that control the afterlife system, ensuring that souls remain trapped in the cycle of death and rebirth. And let's not forget the modern world. The rise of AI, transhumanism, digital control systems, these are not human ideas. The same beings that once descended from the sky in ancient times, presenting themselves as gods, are now operating behind closed doors, influencing global leaders, advancing technology that will tighten their grip on humanity. You are being harvested. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally. Your energy, your emotions, your very existence is being exploited by entities that have controlled this world since the beginning of civilization. Every system, every war, every major crisis is not random, it's part of an ongoing, highly sophisticated mechanism designed to extract, recycle, and consume human consciousness itself. Ancient civilizations knew it. Secret societies protect it. Modern science is starting to prove it. But the most terrifying part? You were never supposed to figure this out. Look around. Why is suffering a constant in human history? Why do war, poverty, and destruction never end, no matter how much technology advances or how much society progresses? Why does every empire, no matter how powerful, collapse in chaos and bloodshed, only for another to rise and do the same thing? Because the suffering is the point. The suffering is the product. The archons, the entities that control this realm, are not just jailers, they are farmers. And you? You are the cattle. This is why major events throughout history are engineered, not organic. Mass trauma creates mass fear, and fear is one of the most potent forms of energetic extraction. This is why history is a cycle of wars, pandemics, financial collapses, and manufactured conflicts. The more you suffer, the more you feel powerless, the more energy they extract. But it's not just war. Everyday life is a feeding ground. You experience joy? It's temporary. The system is designed to drag you back down through stress, debt, health problems, social instability, existential dread. If happiness were the natural state of existence, this world wouldn't be structured to make it so rare. Religions teach that God wants your devotion, your prayers, your obedience, but what if those prayers, that worship, that emotional energy isn't going where you think it is? The Gnostics warned that the so-called God of this world is not benevolent. The ancient Hindus spoke of deities feeding off of human suffering. The Mayans, the Aztecs, the Babylonians, they all engaged in blood sacrifice, mass ritual offerings. Why? Because it wasn't just symbolic. It was a transaction. And those transactions never stopped. Human trafficking? Slavery? Ritual abuse? These aren't just human atrocities, they are parts of a system that operates on a level beyond governments, beyond elites. Why do you think the most powerful figures in the world engage in bizarre, ancient rituals? Why are so many secret societies obsessed with esoteric bloodline traditions? Why does Hollywood, politics, and global finance have an undercurrent of child exploitation, of sexual abuse, of strange and brutal practices that should have been exposed long ago? Because this is not just about power. It's about feeding something bigger. Near-death experiences, astral projection accounts, and high-level occult teachings all describe something disturbing. When you die, something is waiting. Many report being confronted by beings of light, who guide them toward reincarnation, telling them it's their time to return. But what if that guidance is part of the same soul recycling system? Reincarnation is presented as spiritual progress, but ask yourself, if you keep coming back with no memory, with no awareness of past lives, how is that progress? How do you escape something when you don't even know you're trapped? The Tibetan Book of the Dead, written over 1,000 years ago, describes how souls must avoid deceptive entities after death or risk being tricked into returning to the cycle. Ancient Egyptian texts say the same thing: the soul must pass through trials, answer the right questions, avoid the false gods that try to lure it back. You don't see them. You don't hear them. But they are there, pulling the strings, shaping your reality, dictating what you believe, what you fear, what you desire. The archons, the rulers, the true architects of control. The hypostasis of the archons, a Gnostic text hidden for nearly 1,600 years, describes them in exact terms. They are not gods. They are not divine. They are predators. They do not create, they corrupt, manipulate, distort. They rule through illusion, keeping humanity ensnared in a system where every option leads back to them. What does that actually mean? It means everything you interact with, your government, your education, your economy, your entertainment, your food supply, your news, your history, your science, your understanding of yourself, is carefully designed to ensure you never realize the truth. Your history is rewritten. The deeper you look into ancient civilizations, the more you realize something doesn't add up. The official narrative tells you humans went from hunter-gatherers to city builders in a few thousand years. But how? How did primitive societies with no centralized governments, no advanced metallurgy, no scientific understanding of agriculture, suddenly create structures that modern engineers still can't explain? Göbekli Tepe, the pyramids, megalithic sites across the world, all defy the timelines we're given. Why? Because the true history of humanity is erased and rewritten to fit the archon's version of reality. Your education is indoctrination. From the moment you enter a classroom, you are not taught how to think, you are taught what to believe. You are trained to obey authority, to accept hierarchy, to memorize facts instead of questioning them. You are placed on a path of submission, school to job to debt to endless labor. The very structure of modern education is designed to break free thought and enforce compliance. Who controls what is taught? Governments. And who controls governments? The same ruling forces that have always been in power. Your economy is enslavement. Inflation is artificial. The stock market is rigged. Debt is a tool of control. Every financial system on this planet is structured in a way that ensures a small percentage of elites hoard wealth while the rest struggle just to survive. Why? Because if you're struggling to pay rent, if you're desperate to feed your family, if you're drowning in medical bills, you don't have time to question reality. The archons don't want a population of thinkers, They want a population of workers, of consumers, of obedient cogs in the machine. Your food and water are poisoned. Why do you think obesity, cancer, heart disease, and mental illness rates keep climbing? Why do you think nearly every major food product is filled with artificial chemicals, pesticides, synthetic sugars, and toxic preservatives? The Archons don't just rule through politics and money, they rule through biological control. The more unhealthy you are, the weaker your mind. And the weaker your mind, the easier you are to manipulate. Your entertainment is programming. You think you're watching movies, listening to music, consuming pop culture, but in reality, you are being conditioned. The biggest artists, the most famous actors, the most successful franchises, they all follow the same formula because they all serve the same masters. Violence, hypersexuality, addiction, nihilism. These themes are pumped into mass media to keep you distracted, desensitized, emotionally dependent on the system. Your news is propaganda. It doesn't matter if it's left or right, conservative or liberal, every major news outlet is controlled by the same 6 corporations. And those corporations? They are owned by the same financial networks that fund wars, that control industry, that ensure the ruling class remains untouchable. Every headline you read, every crisis that dominates the airwaves, every story that makes you feel fear, outrage, division, it's all designed to keep you locked inside the illusion. Your science is restricted. The most important discoveries, those that could expose the nature of reality, that could dismantle the entire system of control, are silenced, buried, ridiculed. Why do mainstream scientists dismiss the idea of consciousness existing outside the brain, despite overwhelming evidence in quantum mechanics? Why is ancient technology ignored when it contradicts modern timelines? Why are researchers who question official narratives mysteriously discredited, ruined, or even found dead? The system is airtight. Every escape route leads back into another form of control. Every alternative movement that gains momentum is infiltrated, co-opted, neutralized. Every rebellion eventually gets reabsorbed into the same parasitic hierarchy that has existed for thousands of years. And if you think voting, activism, or social revolution changes anything, ask yourself why nothing ever really changes. The same families, the same financial empires, the same hidden rulers remain in power, decade after decade, war after war, crisis after crisis. Governments rise and fall, but the real power never shifts. Everything you've been taught about life, about existence, about the nature of reality, has been controlled, edited, and distorted to keep you ignorant. But ignorance isn't just not knowing something. Ignorance is enforced. It's built into the system, designed to make you reject knowledge before you even get the chance to question anything. The moment you start asking the right questions, you realize everything they've told you is a lie. That's where Gnosis comes in. Gnosis isn't just knowledge. It's not something you learn in school, not something you can find in a book or get from a teacher. Gnosis is direct awareness. A level of knowing that bypasses the system entirely. It's what the rulers of this world have been trying to erase for thousands of years. Look at history. The ancient Gnostics, the Cathars, the Bogomils, the Essenes, every civilization that understood the true nature of this world was hunted down, burned alive, wiped from existence. Why? Because Gnosis is dangerous. It breaks the spell. It exposes the fraud. It destroys the entire control structure. Religions? They don't want you to have Gnosis. They want obedience. Governments? They don't want you to have Gnosis. They want submission. The system as a whole? It is built to suppress the very thing that could destroy it. So what is Gnosis, really? It's not belief. It's not faith. It's not following a doctrine or accepting some ideology. It's direct, personal, undeniable realization of the truth that this world is not what it seems, that you are not your body, that your consciousness is not a product of this system. This is why every major spiritual tradition, in its original, uncorrupted form, was about escaping this reality, not worshipping the forces that control it. The Gnostics spoke of archons, soul traps, false gods. The Buddhists warned of samsara, the endless cycle of reincarnation, designed to keep souls from breaking free. The ancient Egyptians described a post-death trial, where the soul had to navigate deception to avoid being forced back into another lifetime. And yet, look at the world now. Look at modern spirituality. Instead of people trying to break free, they are embracing the system. New Age ideologies teach that everything happens for a reason, that suffering is part of some divine plan. Mainstream religions push submission, repentance, servitude. And the scientific establishment dismisses consciousness entirely, reducing it to biological processes that die with the body. Do you see the pattern? Every institution, religion, science, philosophy, culture has been hijacked to keep you from gnosis. They do not want you to realize that this is a prison. That the entities you've been conditioned to worship are the same forces keeping you trapped here. That you are not just a worker, a citizen, a consumer, you are consciousness itself, hijacked and enslaved. You were never supposed to accept this world as your home. Every second of your existence here is designed to make you believe that this is all there is. That the suffering, the struggle, the endless cycles of control are just part of life. That you should embrace the system, make peace with it, and work within it. That's the biggest deception of all. This world does not belong to you. It never did. Every instinct you have, the feeling that something is off, the unease when you look at history, the deep frustration that nothing ever really changes, that's not paranoia. That's not coincidence. That's the last trace of your real self, screaming from beneath the layers of programming that have been forced on you since birth. Everything in this system is structured to keep you invested in it. Every war, every movement, every crisis keeps you emotionally locked in. You're constantly being pushed to pick a side, politically, religiously, ideologically, because the system doesn't care which side you choose. It just needs you to participate. The moment you step back, the moment you stop playing the game, the illusion starts falling apart. And that's exactly what the rulers of this world fear. This is why every attempt to expose the system is infiltrated and redirected. Every major counter-movement that starts gaining traction, it gets absorbed back into the machine. Political revolutions? They replace one set of rulers with another. Religious awakenings? They get hijacked and turned into more dogma, more submission, more rules. Even modern spirituality has been corrupted, twisting ancient wisdom into another form of passive compliance. You see it in history, the way real knowledge is erased, rewritten, locked away in secret archives. You see it in media, how every alternative idea is ridiculed, how mass entertainment is designed to numb and distract you. You see it in science, how discoveries that could shatter the illusion are shut down, ridiculed, or simply disappear. The system is built with fail-safes. The moment you start seeing the cracks, something is thrown in your path to pull you back in: fear, crisis, obligation, distraction. The archons don't need to control you physically. They control you through attention, energy, engagement. The longer you focus on the game, the less you notice the exit. And that's the real question: what happens if you stop playing? This is what every ancient civilization that understood reality tried to warn us about. The ones that saw through the illusion were wiped out, not because they were wrong, but because they were right. The Gnostics, the Cathars, the Essenes, the hidden sects across time that all carried fragments of the truth, they all pointed to the same thing. This world is not your home. You do not belong to the rulers of this realm. Your consciousness is not their property. That's what they fear the most. Not rebellion. Not resistance. But detachment. The realization that the chains only exist if you choose to wear them. This world was never meant for you. The rulers of this system have spent thousands of years trying to convince you otherwise. And yet, despite everything, despite the programming, the fear, the manipulation, you're still here. You're still questioning. You're still searching. That alone should tell you everything you need to know. Thank you for watching this video and staying with me until the end.